Hello everybody, my name is Hero of Warfare and I thought I could share with you a little bit of a guide on the Chaos Dwarfs. I know it's a little bit late, but in case any of you are struggling with them and maybe want to min-max with them or at least just know them better, this is a guide on all of their starting positions, who you should take out first, who's the biggest threat, also which of the legendary lords are best and how you should put your skill points in, and what you should do in terms of their economy, like when you should have outposts, when you should have factories, and when you should have towers. The answer to towers is always take towers. Yeah, and also on the conclave influence, the seats in the conclave, which seats are the most powerful, which ones should you go for first, and a little bit of extra information maybe inside there. So there will be timestamps in the video if there's just some of these aspects you want to learn more about. Otherwise, let's get to it. So I thought I could just show you the faction effects first, and the Astragoth Iron Hand Disciples of Hashut. The control +2 is really handy because you're gonna have a lot of slaves, which gives you minus to control. Plus, if you're playing on legendary like I am always playing on legendary, then you will have -8 to public order or control. So this will help mitigate that a little bit, and also the better control you have, the less slaves you're going to lose, because you lose more slaves the more public order penalties you have, or like the lower control you have. Also, conclave influence came from all sources, that's pretty good. Research rate +10%, that's pretty okay. Passive ability, mechanical overdrive, that's pretty good. He's a menace in melee, especially with his spells. Casualty replenishment, that's awesome because you might lose, especially when you're using hobgoblins. This is actually really good. And word saveable centaur renders, that's meh, that's okay. When it comes to Drazoath with the Legion of Asgore, armaments cost -10% for all unit capacity upgrades, that is okay. Armaments output +10%, that's pretty good. Campaign movement range +10%, you know, that's pretty good. So there's nothing really here that's too hard to explain, and this Dark Noun is also pretty good for having like Kedai or anything that has the contempt trait. And with Zhatan, he gets an extra convoy, so he starts off with 2, which is pretty damn useful. And half price for recruitment with artillery and war machines, which is also really nice. And casualties captured post battles, that means, plus he also has skills that gets this even more, or like increases this even more, so you're gonna have a lot of slaves with Zhatan. Local recruitment capacity is very nice, and Sadistic Snare is pretty nice when it comes in the early game to shoot people with blunderbusses. So let me just show you with my campaigns. We're gonna go with Zhatan first, and we'll jump right into it. Alright, so this is in turn 88, but when you start, you're gonna start here in the Valerie, and what you wanna do first is go east. You also start with granite spikes, I believe, so you start with both of those. But you want to go east and take Fortress of Ice and Ironstorm. And when you take Ironstorm, Village the Curseling, which has capital over here in Red Fortress, he's probably gonna be either at this settlement or like maybe here, like somewhere around this area. He's gonna be very early on. And he's gonna be your biggest threat in the like very early game, before turn 10, 15. So my recommendation is take these 2 settlements and recruit as many hobgoblin units as you can. I recommend the hobgoblin sneaky gits, because they have stock and they also have the precursor missile weapon, and they're not that much more expensive than these guys, and they're pretty substantially better in my opinion, because it's all about dealing damage when you have these hobgoblins more than it is to tank, and yeah, these guys just deal more damage. And also some hobgoblin archers, and by buying those you're also going to get the legendary hero, so you're gonna have your Lord Zhatan plus the hero you're starting with, the sorcerer, and the legendary hero, the sneaky hobgoblin. I don't remember his name right now, but yeah. So those 3 lords heroes and your starting units, of course, and a bunch of hobgoblins. And with that, you're gonna be able to take out Village the Curseling really early on. So take him out, take his army out, and then it can also be a good idea to buy an extra lord or maybe 2 to help you out, because they don't have supply lines. So it's pretty cheap to have an extra lord, and just buy some money with the buildings in the beginning. And then take out these settlements here, take out the Red Fortress, and if the Kitaeans try to attack you, they don't really in my playthroughs at least, but they might in yours if you're very weak after the battle. But try to just be outside of their attack range, and you can check that by just clicking on them. And after you have secured the area out here, I recommend taking out these bastions one at a time, or gates, and just holding them, because you're gonna be able to hold these gates pretty much no matter what. And the Kitaeans actually didn't go to war with me, even though I had secured them. So I was able to just hold the gates and then focus back over here and take out these mountains, take out the biggest threat, which was next, which is Grimgor Ironhide. I recommend taking him out as fast as you can. And after I was pretty much done with him, the fat man, Grease's Goldtooth, wanted to have a slice. So I took out of him and kind of just went down here and killed, what's his name? The Vampire Lord. And kind of just got all of this stuff. And with some confederations, I got more of the settlements over here from Astragoth. And Archaon actually also was a bit of a pain in my behind, so I had to protect my flank over here. But yeah, that's my tips when it comes to your early game. Take out these and take out Village, and then focus your concentration down here in the mountains, because you can jump over walls, remember. You are dwarves, so you can just use the underway and jump a little bit in the mountains, so you will be able to travel much faster than pretty much all of the other races here. And the Kitaeans, they won't really be able to get through the gates, especially if you just hire a lord with maybe some random cutthroats or maybe a single unit of blunderbuss if they are garrisoning or marching an army over there. So that should do it. And after you've killed Grimgor and Village, you're pretty much set, I believe. Then you should be in a pretty decent spot where you can confederate the other legendary lords, and it shouldn't really be a problem. So you can just use your armaments to upgrade units and stuff like that. Alright, so over to the next legendary lord, and I think we're gonna do Legion of Asgore next. Alright, so with the Asgore here and Drazoath the Ashen, you start off at Black Fortress, and the most immediate threat right here is the Skaven, which are gonna be in these settlements here, which is Thretch Craventail. He is pretty easy to take out. You can actually auto-resolve most of these battles, but I would recommend fighting them manually. And I just went doot doot and there, like right blitz attack basically, and just go like right to Darkhold, recruit some units, stand here, recruit some more units, attack, then he's probably going to be there. I was able to just auto-resolve because I had recruited in both of those and also recruited a secondary lord, hit him with all of those, and then he doesn't really have anything left and easy to take out the last settlement. And since it is a siege with walls, you can also cheese it and just capture the victory points if you want to do that. After you've taken out Thretch, you could go south here and take out what's this called, Imric, but I don't really recommend it because he's not that aggressive in the early game. unless you really hate the high elves. You can also go to the east here and take out oh my god, I forget all the names, but you guys know the vampire dude over here. But he is also gonna be pretty busy for a while, so I don't really recommend that. What I do recommend though is actually going a little bit north. Maybe taking out Mount Silverspear here, maybe taking out the World's Edge Archway, and going east over here, and dealing with Grimgor Ironhide. Just as with Zhatan, he's going to be your biggest threat for a while, so just go and deal with him, because every convoy you send out is gonna start from Tsar Nagrund, and Grimgor usually holds these settlements over here, so he's just gonna stand here. Once you recruit or send out a convoy, he's just gonna go and defeat it and get tons of gold and stuff like that. So if you don't take him out, he's just gonna be stronger, plus he gets the Wa, so it's a really good idea to take him out before he becomes too strong and too much of a nuisance. And once you take him out, you're probably gonna have a lot more wars, because then at that point you're gonna be really strong, and you can pretty much go wherever you want, this way or that way. Take out Archaon this way, confederate with Zhatan probably, or take out Grease's Goldtooth, which is gonna be in this area. Go down here and start dealing with Flaneshan or the Cathayans, kind of depends on who conquers who. But yeah, so just take out Thretch and then Grimgor pretty much. And lastly we have Astragoth, which is here. Alright, so lastly we have Astragoth and his start position here in Uskulak, and it's pretty easy start. You just start conquering these and get your home region in order, and then you kind of have a choice if you want to go west or south. But like with the other two, I recommend going into the mountains, taking out Grimgor first, because he's going to be a really pain in the ass until he is dealt with. Once he is dealt with, then it's kind of up to you, because the dwarfs, especially what's he called, the Slayer King, man, I can't remember any of the names, and Thorgrim, both of those might be a problem, so it kind of depends on your campaign, so you can go and take them out. And remember, iron and gems and gold, they are just so valuable, especially gems. They give you like 750 plus, and iron gives you a lot of raw materials, and gold gives you money and lord recruit rank, so really good, all of those stuff. But there is a lot of resources in these mountains as well, so if you just want to go down, which is usually very easy, that can be a very profitable way to get both settlements, money, and levels. So it's kind of up to you, but I recommend taking out Grimgor Ironhide first, and then you kind of just see who's your biggest threat. In my campaign, I just allied with the Wintertooth in the north here, and I didn't have a problem from the north at all, because the only thing that's up here is Skaven, and of course Chaos Warriors and Norska up here, but they don't really attack you unless you attack them, or if you are seen as a threat. And Kislev, they don't really come here because they have so many enemies to fight, so you're pretty safe from the north. So I would recommend going south and east and maybe then west. Alright, so that covers the starting positions. Now let's go over to the seats in the Tower of Tsar. So this will unlock when you have 75 conclave influence, and we start with tier 1, and the best ones to get in the beginning is Machinator or Machinator, which gives you raw materials plus 100 per turn and extra 5% output. The extra, or the 100 per turn in the beginning, is really good, and same goes for this one, Blacksmith, extra armaments and extra output. Those are the ones I go for first, and after that I really like casualty replenishment, especially if you fight a lot, then that's really good. And which is it? Let's see. This one, campaign movement range plus 15%, that can be pretty good. And this can boost your armies, but I usually go for this one first, then the blacksmith one, then the prophet one, and then I usually go for this one, I think. Let me just see if the follower bound, no, I think it is the one that gives magic. This one, Black Alchemist. This one usually gives me really good items, and at that point you might have gotten enough of these seats to be able to get tier 2, but if not, then just fill in the gaps, really, get whatever you want. And in tier 2, the one I always go for first is this one, Dreadquake Battery, or Ordinator, which is called the seat. It's a really good army ability which you get in your own territory, and it is so useful to help you defend sieges. So if you get a factory, that means you will get a minor siege battle no matter what, and you will have a very decent chance to fend off even like a full-on army if they don't have any really strong units. And even if they do, you can maybe kill off half their army with a good Dreadquake Battery and your blunderbusses and towers and stuff like that. So I recommend getting this one first. After that, I always get this one second, or sometimes I get it first. Either way, these two are the first one you should get. These are army abilities, and these are the Hierophant here, which spawns Kidai Fireborn. It's such a good army ability because they spawn in right away. It's great for either taking out artillery or taking out like a very important unit like an archer unit, or a very elite unit, or to clump up the enemy army and then using your Dreadquake Battery on them, and even spells if you have a sorcerer. After those two, this one can be good, but I usually get that one a little bit later. I usually go for either this one if I get it a little bit later, if I have a lot of factories, or maybe this one or this one, kind of either one. So it doesn't really matter what you get after these two first ones. It kind of depends on what the other factions pick, so you'll have to have the leftovers, but at least get these two first. They are so good. And in the tier 3 here, always get this one first in this tier. Doom of Ashut is a super good army ability, and you have to have a lord. So that's why you should pay attention in your or when it's not your turn and you can see enemies coming, because then you can maybe hire a lord in one of your settlements, and then you will get this army ability right here. And if it's in your own territory, since you're defending a settlement, then you would also get this army ability, and those two together, and especially with this, to get a Fireborn that you can summon in and maybe clump up the army, you can kill off half an army just like that. It's so good. And after that one, you could go for this one, where you sack a settlement with your army or your faction leader's army, and you will get a temporary army of hobgoblins, which is half the price, half the upkeep, I mean. And it's pretty good. It can help you with momentum. Otherwise, I usually go for this one, High Commissioner, which gives you more raw materials and costs you less slaves, basically, or you can use slaves for other stuff. And after those three, it's really just anyone's pick, really. And who to conquer, or who to confederate rather, first, it's really up to you which of the legendary lords you want, who has the most territory, how much territory can you defend if you confederate a large amount of territory. So this is more of a thing you have to really just take into consideration on your own, in your own campaign. But I recommend confederating if one of them have a lot of territory, because that's going to give you more conclave influence, so you can actually confederate the other ones at a faster pace. So that's the seats, and then a little bit on how the labor actions there work, because in the beginning you're not really gonna have a lot of use out of this control, because you're not gonna have that many slaves, and yeah, you're probably gonna be in the red when it comes to control, but it's probably not gonna revolt, it's not gonna lead to rebellion most likely. So using this is not really necessary, unless you really need money for like a fast army or an extra lord or something like that. I don't recommend using this. I recommend using this one all the time in the early game, because that way you can have like 4 seats before the other ones have 1. Excuse me. And then that means you can get the higher tier quicker, and the stuff in tier 1 isn't that good, but the stuff in tier 2 and tier 3, like the Dreadquake Mortar and the Summons and the Doom of Ashut, those are such key army abilities to help you conquer easily. So I recommend just spamming this, and also when you get more provinces, you will be able to control it up here in labor economy. So you can click here if you want to have slaves or interns that you conquer in battle or after battle to come into your new province or settlements. And in the early game that should be something you do, especially if you can hold those settlements, so that you can spend it for conclave influence. Because if you only have it in one province, then yeah, sure, you can use this turn after turn after turn, but you can only do it once per turn. So if you have it on many provinces, then you can maybe have like 4 provinces, so you can use it 4 times in one turn, and that's 40 instead of 10. And that way you can have more conclave influence faster, which gives you these amazing buffs and bonuses which are in the Tower of Tsar. And once you get to, you know, you have confederated your first guy, or maybe your empire is starting to grow, you know, when it's starting to get this size or like half this size, then sure, maybe you spend some of these guys on money or control, so you don't have rebellions all over the place. But in the early game, use it for conclave influence. And now over to the economy and resources. When should you build outposts, and when should you build factories, and when should you build towers? Well, towers are always only in the province capital, so you should always get towers, even if you have the option to get factories and outposts. There are a few provinces where you actually can't get a tower. For example, over here. Let me see. Yeah, over here, for example. Here you can't have a tower, I think. Oh wait, you can actually. There's one place you can't have a tower. Yeah, like here, Blood Peak. See? Convert to outpost or abandoned settlement. Yeah, this was actually my first playthrough, so I didn't make this into a tower for some reason. But always make it into a tower. So you can see most of the provinces you can make it into a tower, but not all of them, especially not here in the mountains. And I think it's also the case over here by Kislev. Why it is like this, don't ask me why. See, here in Fort Jakova as well, can't have a tower there. But in most provinces you can have a tower, so that's what you should get. Because in towers you get... maybe I should take one that isn't my capital, just to like prove a point. Mount Gunbad, for example. Of course, resources, great to get. And here you get all your big military stuff, which is also nice. But remember, you need armaments for them. And you need money for these. But I usually go most for these units. But in the early game, I usually build the money building here, which costs raw materials. And either this one or this one. Usually I go for this one to get the extra control and extra movement range. or if I'm in like hostile territory where I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to keep it, I usually build the defense, the garrison building right away. And maybe even this one to get the extra Dreadquake battery use can also be pretty useful. But then I usually don't upgrade the tower until I know that it's safe to do so, because you don't want to waste a lot of raw materials. So once you get a little bit higher up, you can spend it on these buildings right here, which make it so that less raw materials are consumed. So if you then have factories like this one, for example, 180 raw materials is gonna be consumed each turn from this building. It's usually 225, but because we have that one seat in the Tower of Tsar, it's less. But if I had built this one as well, it would be minus 15% extra on top of that. And this building right here would give you extra conclave influence and extra power reserve capacity. So if you build this in all of your towers, you can have an absurd amount of Winds of Magic power reserve. So you can maybe have what we could have in Warhammer 2, like 200-300 if you have enough. And yeah, the rest of the buildings aren't that important. This line right here gives you extra Lord recruit rank and Hero recruit rank, so that could be useful. Recruiting Lords and Heroes at like max rank, that could be nice. But that's about the towers, so always build those. And usually you should have one or it depends if it's like a 4 settlement or 3 settlement province, but usually you should have at least one outpost and one factory, because in the factories you can have this building right here, which gives you extra raw materials output plus 30%. So if you have your outpost and you build this one, which gives you 400 raw materials, and plus 30%, that's like 120 extra. And especially if you have another outpost and then you have one factory, then that's another 120. See where I'm going with this? You're gonna get a lot more raw materials for your intern ship, so to speak. And one thing you have to be worried about, or you should be aware of rather, is that when you're conquering new territory and you don't know if it's safe to really start building stuff there, I recommend just getting factories all over the place in the beginning and just build either garrisons or don't build anything, just have the regular settlement building, because you're gonna get unwalled settlement battles in factories, and the garrison here is also gonna provide you with really good, Chaos Dwarf warriors and stuff like that. So they are way more defendable than the outposts, which are open field battles, and even if you build the defense garrison building, they aren't gonna be able to hold against any proper army. But once it's safe, then you can easily convert it to a factory or an outpost as you see fit. So that's the tip right there. But also, if there is some special resources, like for example gold or iron or what's the other ones, like gems for example. This is in a tower though, but as you can see, gems, they provide extra income from gem and gold mines, and they also give a crap load of money. And iron, I believe there's iron down here, isn't there? Where's the iron? Up here? Okay. So iron, that gives extra 15% armament output, plus an extra 250 armaments. But it takes away raw materials, just like these buildings right here. So this is why you should have this in a factory if it's not in a tower though. And there are a few other resources like that, so just press on the building browser and check Okay, what does it do? Okay, this doesn't do anything when it comes to raw materials or production or anything like that, so it doesn't matter if it's in a factory or an outpost. When it comes to the ports also, I don't know if I have any ports. Yeah, I do actually. Factories will give you extra income from refinery buildings, like the this one. So that would give me extra income once I build those, and it will also provide you with extra armaments output. So that's why ports, it's a good idea to build factories when it comes to ports. So that's also something to keep in mind. I think I've covered everything about the resources and all of that now. So how do you like balance all of this stuff? Remember, slaves or interns or whatever, that's your bread and butter. As long as you keep fighting, you're gonna get more interns or slaves. And also something to consider is the amount of entities. So for example, Skaven and Greenskins and stuff like that, they have a lot of entities, right? Like Skaven have like 160 in Skaven slave units. So if you kill 160 Skaven slaves, right, then you're gonna be able to get 80 slaves or interns after the fight. So if you kill a big Skaven army with like 3,000 units, then you should run them down after you have won the battle, so that you get the most amount of laborers afterwards. That's a good tip if you need more laborers, but you should always keep fighting battles when it comes to the Chaos Dwarfs, so that you always keep your laborers up, so you can always get enough raw materials. Otherwise you will get efficiency is gonna go down and you're not gonna make enough money or enough armaments and stuff. So laborers is your bread and butter. You always have to have them and try to keep them, around your entire empire. And in the beginning, I recommend just building raw material out, or like from outposts. Just get a lot of raw materials and the money building there. This one. And once you get a little bit later into the campaign, then start with the armament production. Because in the early game, it's gonna be way more cost efficient to have one decent army with some real units, some real Chaos Dwarf units. Chaos Dwarfs, Infernal Guard, stuff like this. But it's way more cost efficient to have 2, 3, maybe 4 armies running around with hobgoblins and just a couple of units, like a couple of great Taurus, for example. They are really great with the let me just show right here. Where is it? Flying monsters with this extra ability here, strength from flesh. That means when they are in melee in combat, they will heal 0.20% extra health per second, and that's actually a lot. So the great Taurus, they're pretty cheap, reasonably cheap. They're pretty good in combat, and when you have this one as well, they're gonna be pretty tanky, especially if you give them extra missile resistance and armor as well, if you can afford all of these. So recommend giving each of those armies a few of those units, and also maybe some artillery, some hell cannons or war machines, and maybe some blunderbusses, because they are just one of the best units in the entire game. So that way you can easily conquer way more than if you have one really expensive yet very strong army. Just a tip from me there. So when you get to, turn 50, 60, 70, and your empire is starting to grow and you don't really have a problem anymore, then start switching production over to armaments. And then you should be pretty set. When it comes to leveling up the legendary lords, Astragoth is really friggin' strong on his own. Let me see here. So this, I believe, is one of the... So Crown of Skulls is one of the items you get from your convoys. You get it from Sylvania. When you take your convoy to... where is it? To Castle Drakenhof. So when you send a convoy there, you will get some resources like money or slaves or whatever, and you'll also get an item each time you send a convoy to one of these places. Castle Drakenhof gives you this item which heals, which is so good. Crown of Skulls, it gives you the hunger and 15% ward save. And this guy, he just makes use of that so well. So you can get that at probably turn 12, 13, something like that. And that is really early on to have such a strong item. So you'll be able to just one-man army almost from the beginning. And his items are also pretty good. So let me see here with my resistances. 35% ward save, physical resistance plus 15, so that's up to 50, right? And missile resistance 15%, so that's up to 65% missile resistance. And also he has this, which gives him extra 30%. So that's what, 80% physical resistance. And I think there's something else there. Let me see. Maybe it's a banner? Yeah, this banner right here. Extra 10% in an area. So that's like 90%, right? And that's maximum physical resistance. It's not ward save, so magical attacks can still hurt him. But he's basically a super tank that never can be killed in any of the battles. So usually I just send him in and spam magic. And I have these other heroes if there is like single entities or someone is coming at my front line. But as you can see, this is not a very impressive army, especially at turn 94. And these guys I've pretty much had the entire time, from like the very beginning. You can see I still have Orc Laborers, which have 8 unit rank. So I've just used Astragoth the entire time. So in terms of how you should level them up, I recommend going Route Marcher first level, of course, and then just get him to, as you can see here, get him to his magic and get him to Hellhammer and Flamestorm. Those are gonna be your super good spells, very cheap as well, and Greater Arcane Conduit. And once he reaches level 12, I believe it is, then you can go down this line right here. All of this is good, but especially this one. So get this one as fast as you can, because as you can see, Winds of Magic cost -6 for Hellhammer, which makes it so incredibly cheap. 5 Winds of Magic for such a good spell. It should be illegal. And then I usually go with the blue line. I really like getting some healing, casualty replenishment, especially in the early game. And then the Tyrant is really good for extra income and labor, and extra casualty replenishment for him. Lightning Strike, just in case there are like 4 armies coming at me. And then just go this. And then the red line, just whatever kind of units you have in the army, or units that you think you're gonna end up with, to buff them, and buff them when they're gonna be elite, and in the end use some of the yellow skill line to really get them up. You can also invest in Mentor if you want to level up other lords. When it comes to Mr. Do I have him? Zhatan the Black. So this is obviously gonna be a little bit of AI leveling up, but he is a melee lord, so really is self-sufficient, or self-explanatory rather, on how to level him up. Route Marcher, and then I recommend at least getting him some of the yellow lines, but I also recommend, if you're playing as Zhatan, then going for, I believe it is, let me see, this one right here, to buff your Hobgoblin Archers and your Blunderbusses, and then maybe either the Artillery or your Chaos Dwarfs. Really depends on what you get. But then I recommend going the blue line a little bit. The Logistician, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Like I said, to help you with the casualty replenishment rate, it's gonna really help you out. One of the things that's worth noting is that the Chaos Dwarfs have like green territory all over the place, so they never have the downside of yellow and red territories, which is the casualty replenishment rate just drops in yellow and red territories. They never have this issue, and if you put some points into this as well, you're always gonna replenish really fast. And of course Tyrant, really recommend getting that, and Lightning Strike and this one, and his special line, always recommend getting that, especially this one, gonna get you a lot more slaves or interns and just gonna make him stronger overall. This one is also really good, and this one is pretty good, and this one is pretty good. I actually am not really that much of a fan of his mounts. The Great Taurus is decent, the Lamaso is very squishy, so if you want to make him like a very strong warrior, then I recommend just having him on foot. But if you like the maneuverability and, you know, be able to hit and run a little bit, then take either of the mounts. Just be wary that you're going to be way more squishy on them than if he is on foot. And he's not one of the legendary lords that you can just send in and 1v9 or like take out the entire enemy army. He is not as strong as the other two legendary lords. And good old, what's his face? Do I not have him? Oh right, remember. This is actually before they fixed that bug. I had Drazoath, but he actually died and he wasn't immortal, so he actually died for real. So give me a second and I'll find the other save. No wait. Yeah? Okay. Load this. Alright, so here we have Drazoath the Ashen in his own campaign, and it's pretty much the same as with Astragoth. Root Marcher first, then his magic line, so you can get to Flames of Asgore, put 2 points into that, and then I recommend getting this as quickly as possible, go down this line and get Long Years of Exile, so that he gets this spell for 9 Winds of Magic, and it is so good against infantry. And his mount is also pretty good, and Master of Hell gives, no wait, yeah, well, both of these actually gives him some survivability, I think. No, just this one. Extra hit points and barrier hit points, so he can actually hit and run a little bit and get his barrier back. This makes him probably the strongest of the Chaos Dwarf legendary lords. So I recommend getting this. You don't have to get Hellhammer, but it can be good to have both of those spells. And then I recommend getting Logistician and Tyrant and Lightning Strike, like all of the rest. Getting some of the red skills, depends on what your army is really, or what you're planning on getting in his army. And getting Standard Eye, getting the yellow at last. So pretty straightforward really. And he has some okay quests, or rather items, but the Demon Spite Crucible here, I actually sometimes don't bother equipping this, and actually I'm just gonna keep the Crown of Skulls because that's better, I think, and also some of the other items. So kind of up to you if you want to have his legendary items. It does give a set bonus, but it doesn't really matter. Then I think I have covered pretty much everything there is to this race. The main thing to keep in mind is to just keep on the aggressive. Don't take too much time being passive and building up a super strong army. That's not gonna fly with these guys. You should try to get just a steamrolling time. Oh, we haven't really gone through convoys actually. So military convoys. With Zhatan you're obviously gonna be able to have 2 in the beginning. Otherwise you're gonna be able to have just 1 in the beginning, and then there is one technology that gives you another one. Let me see where it is. There one. Convoy Cartographers. So you can get that one. And also there's a seat, or a seat bonus rather. Industry district in tier 2. When you have all of these 3, then you get another active convoy that you can have. So you can have maximum of 3 unless you're Zhatan. If you start with his faction, then you can have 4. And also one thing that I recommend, well, it's not something that you really have to do, I just like to do it. When you start a new Chaos Dwarf campaign, I usually like to rush this technology so that you get convoy overseers or their lord at rank 4 instead of rank 1, so you can actually put in some points in like their ambush and their casualty replenishment and stuff like that right away. Keep in mind this means that you will be able to send the convoy 1 turn later than if you don't do it, so it's kind of like up to you if you want to use it or not. But I recommend sending the first convoy to Castle Drakenhof to get that really good item, Crown of Skulls. And after that, it really doesn't matter that much where you send them. Just see what you need, really. Do you need slaves or interns or laborers? Or do you need money? Do you have an abundance of armaments? Do you need raw materials? My tip is to send away armaments if you have them in the beginning, and either get money or slaves or laborers rather, or raw materials. I value getting laborers if I don't have them, but if I have an abundance of them, I really like getting raw materials, because money is so easy to come by just by fighting. So unless I'm in a really pinch where I don't have any money, then I would rather get raw materials, because that way I can build up my towers and factories and stuff way faster. And even if I just get a really big abundance of slaves, I can rush construction costs. That's also something we haven't really talked about, but yeah, with Chaos Dwarfs you can rush construction. So for example, you can press here, this is going to cost 90 laborers, and the longer a building takes to build, the more laborers it's going to cost, and the cost goes down as the turns go down. And technologies, that's okay. That's one more thing that we haven't really talked about. What should you go for first? It doesn't really matter, but I usually go with this one in the very beginning, or usually after the Veteran Convoy Master. So maybe I go with Merchant Guilds into Veteran Convoy Master first, and then I take the tallest towers to get extra control, which is really nice. And I really like this one as well, extra control. I think it costs a little bit of conclave influence though, but getting that extra control is really nice. And this one is also nice, getting some extra recruit rank. Let me see what else and I think I'm gonna go for industry a little bit after that, get extra laborers. And these I actually go for usually a little bit later, because this one and this one costs 1,000 raw materials, and you're not gonna have too much of those in the beginning. And these two also cost 1,500, and these two cost 2,000. So that's usually something I go for a little bit later. So I often go for military instead. Either go for these ones, or if I have enough armaments, I go for these ones, because minus 5% upkeep, thank you very much. Extra casualty replenishment, thank you very much. Extra ammunition, thank you very much. Extra local recruitment capacity and recruit rank, thank you very much. So all of these are really, really good. But it doesn't really matter what you go for, just take whatever you need in the technology tree. They are all great, really. Alright, then I think we've covered pretty much everything, haven't we? Here you increase capacity, but I think this is pretty self-explanatory. And of course, the more capacity you make, the more stuff or more like upgrades you're gonna be able to have. And you can only have a certain amount of these, like 3 to 6 I think it is. and they're also gonna cost armaments to enable them, and also upkeep depending on how many units you have that are using the forge craft options or these bonuses right here. So don't use them unless you really have to, or if you just want to. Remember, your armaments can really just fly away if you use too many of these upgrades. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So hope this guide was a little bit helpful, and maybe it wasn't too hard to understand. I know the economy can be a little bit difficult when it comes to all these resources. And leave a comment below if it was good, or if you wanted to see more, or if you wanted me to explain it better, and I'll see what I can do in making a part 2. So hope you have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!